Port Charles is about to get flipped on its head once again, and longtime General Hospital fans better buckle up, because none other than Kin Shriner is making a surprise return as iconic legal eagle Scott Baldwin. But this isn't just any walk-in-the-park comeback. Kin Shriner returns with a visible leg injury, sparking major concern, whispers of an international conspiracy, and a whole lot of bad blood that's about to boil to the surface. But it's not just his bruises that stir the pot. Scott arrives harboring two devastating secrets that, once exposed, will ripple through the lives of Lucy, Liesl, Ava, Elizabeth, and even Sonny Corinthos himself. Let's dive into this 4,000-word spoiler special that will leave your jaw on the floor, your pulse racing, and your inner soap fan screaming for more. The scene at General Hospital begins in chaos as ambulances arrive at the ER entrance. Finn and Liz are called urgently, and so is Liesl Albrecht, who drops her coffee when she sees who's on the gurney. Scott Baldwin, battered, bruised, and clutching his left leg wrapped in gauze. "Scott," Liesl gasps, rushing to his side. "What happened? You look like you tangoed with a tiger." "Close," Scott mutters through clenched teeth, clearly in pain. "Try Buenos Aires and a rooftop ambush. I'll explain everything eventually." But the return isn't merely physical. Scott's injury is only the beginning of the mystery. He refuses pain medication until he speaks to Lucy, then demands a private room. No cops, no press, no curious interns. Meanwhile, back at the Metro Court, word spreads that Kin Shriner has returned, and the entire town starts buzzing. Lucy nearly faints when she hears the news, torn between relief and fury. "He ghosted me for months," she huffs. "And now he limps back into town like some wounded action hero?" As the doctors treat Scott's leg, a deep laceration and a fractured tibia, the man begins to talk, cryptically at first. To Finn and Liesl, he reveals the first sliver of truth. "I wasn't on vacation. I was tracking someone. You remember the offshore accounts tied to Victor Cassadine? I followed a trail that led me straight into the belly of the beast, and they didn't exactly roll out the red carpet." It turns out Scott has spent the last 4 months undercover, posing as a shady legal consultant to get closer to remnants of the Cassadine network. His mission? Find out who is pulling strings after Victor's death, and stop a shadowy player from using old Cassadine funds to build a new empire. But who sent Scott on this mission? In a jaw-dropping confrontation at GH, Tracy bursts into Scott's room. The two spar with their usual wit and venom, but the truth cuts deeper than any of their previous battles. "You could have died out there," she growls. "You paid me enough to take the risk," Scott shoots back. "Besides, I owed you." "Because of Luke?" she whispers. And just like that, the pieces click. Tracy had discovered a lead on Luke Spencer's alleged death being staged, and sent Scott to investigate. But what Scott found wasn't Luke. It was someone worse, someone who's been watching Port Charles for years. Lucy finally arrives to see Scott, her emotions raw. "I thought you were dead," she sobs. "Or worse, with someone else." Scott winces in pain, not from a leg, but from guilt. "I never meant to disappear," he says. "But if I had told you where I was going, they would have come after you." This deeply unsettles Lucy, especially when Scott confesses that he believes someone from Port Charles tipped off his enemies. Meanwhile, Liesl, always the calculating mind, realizes Scott's injury isn't random. It's a warning. Someone wanted him maimed, not killed. Which leads her to suspect. Who's still working in Victor's shadow? Is it someone at the hospital? Someone in the mob? But things take a darker turn when Scott, half delirious from fever, starts mumbling about a child no one knows exists. The second secret rocks Port Charles to its core. Scott Baldwin has another child, and they're closer than anyone realized. Scott confesses to Elizabeth that years ago, during a legal case overseas, he had a brief relationship with a woman named Katerina Volkov, a brilliant linguist working with WSB. What Scott never knew until recently is that Katerina became pregnant and gave birth to a son she named Lucas Volkov Baldwin. Lucas, now in his early 20s, is a tech prodigy, and he was the one who infiltrated the Cassadine accounts, helping Scott trace their movements. But after helping Scott gain access, Lucas vanished. And Scott fears he's now a prisoner, or worse. This revelation rattles Elizabeth, especially after her recent loss of Epiphany and so many family ties fraying. Her reaction surprises even her. She wants to help Scott find his son, saying, "No one deserves to be left in the dark about their family." Liesl, meanwhile, is speechless. She had always believed that she and Scott shared everything, and this secret child is a betrayal she can't process. "You went on this crusade and left me behind, for a child you never knew and never told me about." Scott's guilt is immense, but his resolve is clear. If Lucas is alive, I will bring him home. Scott's leg injury, he now explains, was caused by a booby-trapped hotel safe in Brazil. Inside, he found partial documents, financial ledgers linking a Port Charles law firm to a new Cassadine shell company. And that law firm? When confronted, Martin deflects, but viewers see a flicker of fear in his eyes. Scott threatens to go public unless Martin helps him track down Lucas. Meanwhile, Ava overhears part of Scott's rant and begins connecting dots, including a mystery caller who's been threatening her to stay away from Laura and Nicholas. Is Nicholas tied to this new Cassadine Shadow Fund? But Scott doesn't think Nicholas is behind it. He believes there's a new heir, someone nobody knows, operating behind the scenes. Just as Scott plans to leave the hospital in a wheelchair, because of course he's trying to check himself out against medical advice, he gets a tip from Spinelli. The young techie has been combing through Port Charles networks, and he finds an alias, L.V. Baldwin, signed into a Metro Court guest network 3 nights ago. Scott races there, with Lucy pushing his wheelchair, naturally, and finds a hotel room under the name Leonid V. Barker. The door creaks open and there, standing across from him, is a young man in a hoodie, cold eyes flicking from Lucy to Scott. "Dad," he says, without a trace of warmth. "Took you long enough." Lucas is bitter. He blames Scott for ignoring Katerina's letters, for living his life in Port Charles while Lucas was raised in prison-like secrecy in Belarus. He says he only helped Scott for one reason: to get you here, to Port Charles, so I could watch the walls close in on everyone you love. Scott is stunned. Lucas has been working for the new Cassadine benefactor, using his father's trust to infiltrate the GH server, the WSB cloud, and even Sonny's offshore laundering network. Now, Lucas gives Scott a chilling ultimatum. Walk away, forget I exist, or the people you love start dropping like flies. You've already got a bad leg. Don't lose your heart, too. Scott doesn't tell anyone the full truth about his confrontation with Lucas, not even Lucy or Liesl. But his demeanor changes. He becomes focused, serious, almost paranoid. He hires Brick for protection. He warns Sonny, obliquely, about data breaches. He leaves one chilling message for Alexis Davis. "Tell Diane to triple encrypt everything. Someone is coming for our legal system next." And then he disappears. Liesl and Lucy team up to find him, discovering burned files in his GH room and a cryptic message left on Lucy's voicemail. "If I don't make it back, find name Mikhail in Victor's Black Ledger." That's the key to everything. Just as Lucy and Liesl piece together clues, Jason Morgan returns to town with his own intel. Someone has been posing as him on the dark web, funneling Cassadine money into humanitarian fronts in Eastern Europe and framing him. Scott's son, Lucas, is at the heart of it all. Port Charles is now staring down a new Cassadine Cold War, and Scott Baldwin is no longer just a quirky lawyer with a chip on his shoulder. He's a father, a wounded warrior, and a man who may have to destroy his own flesh and blood to save the town he loves. In a private scene, Scott sits by the docks with a cane in hand. He stares out at the water, whispering to himself, "I wanted to be the good guy, the smart one, the funny one, but now I might have to be the killer." Behind him, someone steps into the shadows. It's Robert Scorpio, returning from Geneva. "You're not alone, Scott. Whatever you're walking into, I'll walk with you." And with that, 2 old frenemies prepare for the most unexpected team-up in GH history. Kin Schreiner's return as Scott Baldwin is more than just nostalgia. It's a masterclass in long-term storytelling. With a physical injury, emotional scars, two massive secrets, and a possible war brewing, Scott Baldwin is once again the heart of the storm. Port Charles may not be ready for what's coming, but fans absolutely are.